Yeah, it's becoming very difficult, and you have to see how many players they have injured in the middle of the park to understand that it's getting very hard for Aston Villa because they don't really have a depth on the bench. But without Kamara, without McGinn now injured, Onana as well, and you can add also Barkley as well. So it's becoming very hard. Where the strengths of the team were in the middle of the park, and I remember the game that they played against Arsenal at home when they won the last minutes of the game. They were so strong in the middle of the park, like players like Declan Rice were struggling as well. So, yeah, I think it's going to be hard for them to catch and to surprise like Leicester did like a decade ago. And it's all open to Arsenal, because even when Arsenal have a so-so result with a draw away from home, the others they lose. So it's already given.
I think he had some sort of rant at the end of the game, Unai Emery, about. I didn't hear about PSR, profit and sustainability.
Right, we're at that stage, are we?
Yeah, well, I think going back to Frank's point about the squad, I think he's finally getting sort of annoyed about it. That it's not that Villa don't want to spend. I think there is a sort of balance sheet issue with what they can and can't spend and who they need to sell. Whereas a lot of these other clubs are just going out and spending. And I don't know, I don't know how it all works, to be honest. But it seems some clubs are able to just go out and shell out a bunch of money on players, and others like Villa, who are doing great, cannot. I think they've got like the 7th or 8th biggest wage bill in the division, so they're definitely punching above their weight. But it's moments like this, when they didn't play, the squad is a little bit thin, and they had no strikers to bring in, and no front players to make a change when they were behind. It was just youngsters, midfielders and defenders. But that would be making an excuse for them. They played against an Everton side that are nothing more than hard-working, and they didn't play well. And they made mistakes at the back for the goal. You know, between Pau Torres and Emi Martinez, and they've been two of their best players, they made a right pig's ear of it. And it just seems that City and Villa and others are all going to fall over themselves, and Arsenal are going to be what they are, which is the best team in England.
Yep.
And they may not have to, as we talked about yesterday, they may not have to be great this year to win the league. I mean, things may change in the second half of the season as we go along. But I think it looks unlikely with what we're seeing from City. And we've seen this a lot from, not a lot, we've seen it a few times from Villa. Even in their great run of results, which they have been, there's been games where they haven't looked the best and they've been behind and they've dug it out. And I always say, that's great for team spirit and stuff like that, but it generally has no longevity. I mean, Leverkusen did it with Alonso a couple of years ago. They dug it out and they dug it out, and all these late goals, and they won the league. But it's few and far between that you can play like that and continually come back and win games and go on and win a league. And I think that's one of the reasons, apart from the squad, why Villa, if they get in the top 4 or 5, I think it's been a very good season for them.
As Craig said, like maybe a few seasons ago when you've got Manchester City on your tail, or Liverpool when they're in top form, Frank, you could see a scenario of one of those sides going on a run, really putting pressure on Arsenal. But it's very difficult, isn't it, to see City, Chelsea, Villa winning, for example, from now till the end of the season and really putting Arsenal on the ropes.
Yeah, you're right, Dan. I think it's almost impossible because we know that a lot of inconsistency have been shown during this year and last year as well, and which says a lot about the level of the Premier League as well. I don't want to make a statement, but we don't have a race. We see strange results sometimes. You know, when you see Liverpool yesterday and you see Manchester City as well, you know, being smashed by Manchester United, like there is such a level of differences between the two clubs, which is not the case. And you say, well, it's impossible. You see Chelsea having good results and suddenly losing with crazy manner. It doesn't make any sense anymore. And the only team who have consistency, which is Arsenal, is doing okay, doesn't need to push too much to get points days after days. And it's true that before it wasn't the case. We had a race, we had something that we could believe that it would be crazy until the end. And like last season, like Liverpool last season, Arsenal is getting points without fighting too much against the others because they're losing all their games. And remember last season, the end of the season of Liverpool was quite appalling, but they were so easy comparing to the others that they got the title, and they would be the same for Arsenal, I think.
The other Premier League game today saw Newcastle take on Wolves. Let's show you the highlights of that.
Yep.
That's that.
We've spared you.
Is there anything to this fact that's doing the rounds, that there's been more 0-0 draws this season than there was the whole of last season?
I don't know why, but the Premier League at the moment for me, certainly outside, well, even outside Arsenal, the rest of them, but when you get down to sort of 6, 7 and below, and when you get to mid-table, it's just too mediocre for me. Compared to other leagues, the amount of money generated by the Premier League that is distributed from TV companies and the commercial side down to these clubs is billions. And what we're seeing from a lot of these teams, certainly in England, it's a survival league. And they play a lot of them like it's survival because it's about the money. And we see a lot of this, just parking the bars and working hard. And I tell you what also doesn't help, and I think we're seeing a spate of this in England at the moment, is when the top clubs go to Europe and pilfer their players and sign the big players. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it strengthens them, but it leaves the others relatively strong. But what we've seen, and maybe statistically this has always been the case, but I think it's very cyclical, is we've seen Palace sell Anderson to Fulham, Guehi to Liverpool, Eze to Arsenal, Elise has gone to Bayern, Kerkez went from Bournemouth to Liverpool, Huijsen went to Real Madrid. But a lot of these Premier League teams down the bottom, they're strengthening the other teams at the top. And so that weakens them and strengthens the others.
Hasn't that always been the case?
Well,
though?
yeah, but I think I'm seeing it seems it is, and it's certainly when I was in Scotland, that was always the case for years and years. The Celtic and Rangers went out and bought out all the other best players from all the clubs, and that's why nobody has won the league in Scotland apart from Celtic and Rangers for 40 years. It's dull and it's boring, and Hearts may change it this year. But there has been a lot of weakening by the big boys. Semenyo and Gay, they've just gone to Manchester City. You know, Mateus Cunha, world's best player, goes to Man United. So it has been sort of difficult for some of these other clubs, and Oliver Glasner was off ranting about it yesterday. That being said, there is still, it is my opinion, that there is too much emphasis from Premier League teams on survival only.
Right.
And to me, it affects the product. And if we're being honest about it, the bulk of the teams in the Premier League, technically,